roly-poly, eating corn and taters, hungry every minute of the day. Roly-poly, scrambled eggs for breakfast, long as he can eat it, it's okay. He will eat an apple pie, never even bat an eye. He'll eat everything from soup to hay. Roly-poly, daddy's little fatty. Fatty's gonna be man someday. Hey guys, this is Brad with Mainstage Music, taking you on another vintage voyage today. We, of course, are live here on Tuesday evening, and I'm sure you guys are all logged in for this episode of the Vintage Voyage, which is all about the Banner era Gibson acoustic guitars. Now, we have, been broadcasting both on Facebook for years now, but also on YouTube. So if you guys haven't already gone to YouTube and subscribed, make sure you do that so that we can, do what we're supposed to be doing and all that kind of stuff. Now, I do have my phone on me today, so we are, answering your questions and so on and so forth. So if you have any questions or blah, 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 you just let me know, because that's what we're here to do. So so today we have a really special guest. Okay, and our guest is zooming in through technology all the way from the Great White North. And he's an esteemed guest on top of that. And our guest tonight is Mr. John Thomas. And now I just want to but just tell you guys ahead of time, we've been having a little bit of technical difficulties with some of the audio. So if his audio sounds a little garbled, he's not just being difficult, it's just one of those things, it's technology. So John, thank you so much for coming tonight. So anyway, John Thomas is someone who, I've only met virtually, okay? So he wrote a phenomenal book, which I brought my copy with you guys to show and plug. And the book is called Kalamazoo Gals, a story of extraordinary women and Gibson's Banner guitars of World War II. So John wrote this book several years ago, and I'll tell you what, I bought this book, well, first of all, because I love reading and I love old guitars, but also when I read this book, I had an amazing connection, amazing personal connection with this book. So kind of spoiler alert, what this book is about, and really an appropriate time, being we just had International Women's Day, okay? This book is about all the women who stepped up in the workplace during the wartime era, let's say 41 through 46, okay? When all the boys went off to war in the European and Pacific theaters. Now, my personal story was that my grandma used to tell me about her being 18 years old and getting to move, she's just an 18-year-old getting to move to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and work for the Schlitz Brewery. And she loved it. She said it was all women working there, and she made so many great friends. And, she's a teenager in the city, and she was making good money. And it was liberating because in those days, it's not like women were disrespected, but their roles were definitely more as homemakers and so on, and it was less common to see them in factory work. So what John basically did some digging in this book, it tells the story of stories of several women who he had the, of course, privilege of interviewing about their experiences. Effectively, they were the bulk of the workforce at the Gibson Kalamazoo factory back in the 1940s. So, John, what gave you the idea for this book? Just your love of the guitars, or?
I say, honestly, I'm motivated to support him. That is, my take is a lot. I write in journal on medicine, and I got before, and just in I self-contained literature, and the editor expected a still style. So I started looking better out for my writing and to write the music. And in the course of one of my, I don't remember which project it was, in the course of one of my projects, I came up with a photo, famous company shared an international a couple of years ago. 70 years old, sit down a Gibson Korean album, no myth, and the part of it is a curiosity. More acceptance and it's about really that dressed, setting on a journey, and everything like music, history, a little so dust history.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm so happy that you wrote the book because, first of all, I don't want to say I've got all the books, but I've got quite a few of them. And so I brought one with me because I wanted to kind of check something that you had said about how Gibson effectively disavowed making guitars during that time. You have to remember that, if you were making, let's say you ran a meat packing facility, well, that's perfectly fine. People got to eat. Even a brewery, like where my grandmother worked, that's a food staple. So that was completely fine. But a guitar, a lot of people were, they could see how that would not be something that should be made during the war time.
So, and just guitars, Gibson guitars, Gibson, I heart in front of the board. Bob could not keep demand guitars, soldiers. They were wrong building because the brass and soldiers pushing back. No, it wasn't about that. It was about having builds. Again, continue before they changed. Nobody made guitar. So the force recognize those women better.
So you're saying effectively, and again, I want to so apologize to our viewers tonight with the audio thing, but from what I picked up from him is that there were other people making guitars during the war era, but it was Gibson that chose to have a female workforce, and that was the controversy, not so much that guitars were being made. If I heard you correctly, there were horn manufacturers making stuff. You had, of course, people used brass band in the military effort and so on. So it wasn't the issue of musical instruments, as you're saying. It had more to do with just the fact that Gibson made call it a controversial choice of using a woman workforce.
That's right. I apologize for the audio. The glitch is for a guitar, making guitars. Right, there was no problem making guitars. And in the military was made more guitars from some That was not, it wasn't private, it was a force.
See, that is depressing, because I'll tell you one thing that I've learned, and anybody who's visited Main Stage Music knows that the boss isn't me, okay? It's a woman. It's my wife. Because when I go to the NAMM show, she gets more hugs from everybody at all the different manufacturers because she's the one who pays the bills, okay, on time. So she knows everybody at Gibson, at Martin, at whatever, and they know her on a first name basis and so on because my wife is the most important part of Main Stage Music because she keeps the bills in line and she keeps the paperwork perfect. So you would think that women would be absolutely suited with their, of course, specialized skills. And of course, all people have different skills. But one thing, and again, call me, I don't know if this is an ist thing. I think it's a compliment, but they're very detail oriented. And with guitars, that's what it's all about. So you definitely want to have that going for you. Oh, you got something going on here? Oh, whatever. That's oh no, it's fine. I mean, so anyways, that being said, so let's talk about these guitars, because naturally we have stuff that makes the Banner era special. Okay, and now a couple of things. I was going to do a little slideshow for our viewers tonight of some stuff, but we ran out of computers. You wouldn't think about how many computers it takes to do this little show. So what I'm going to do is I just kind of have a few of them here. So the Banner era, some people might wonder, well, what does that mean? Okay, well, this is what we're talking about with the term Banner. If you look at the headstock of this guitar, okay, do you see that little banner right there? There we go. You can see it. Now, what it says is it says only a Gibson is good enough. And I'll tell you, it's a very, pretty little accoutrement. And you're only going to see these on Gibson acoustics during that time. So I don't know whose idea it was, but it's a pretty neat little design. And they didn't do it after that time. Now, before that, for people who just want to know, I happen to have one sitting here in the shop, or in the firehouse. So this is a 1930s Gibson guitar, and you can see how the headstocks differ. So, first of all, they have the more clean and pronounced open book headstock that was introduced on the Banner era guitars, which we still see today, versus the 30s has more, let's just say, a fundamental look, but it's not as clean. You also notice that the decal is a very plain white silk screen. And I'll tell you, it's a little primitive looking. The Banner era has a very clean, gilded logo. It's beautiful. I mean, it's really a departure from one era to the next. So really, the Banners were kind of, let's just say, if I'm going to say anything, I would say it's the introduction of Gibson as a truly premier, brand. Because every little detail about this, and you have to remember, during this era, there was all sorts of rationing, I'd assume. So it's not like they were getting the materials that they demanded at any given time. A matter of fact, you might be able to clear something up. So this guitar here this is the Southern Jumbo, okay? And this one has an interesting painted-on stripe that I've heard affectionately called a skunk stripe. Now, I'll tell you guys something. This guitar smells just fine, okay? So, I mean, and of course it sounds wonderful and so on. But I wonder, they call it a skunk stripe because it's got a line down the middle. But what do you feel? Do you have any opinions on why they painted this line on the top?
Yeah, pretty common. So those guitars crack on the center.
Mm-hmm.
And it's painted black over the ground to cover up. Closely, I'm sure you noticed the center seam and the stone of it blue. So, because Gibson couldn't paint anything during the war, painted little strips down. Early on, it was favored. People figured out something wrong with it. Of course, now there's markedly guitar line. Does not have this stripe.
Oh, okay.
There's a fellow in Toronto, Canada, Mark, but he's the premier Gibson Air restoration in the world, and he has really interesting theories on this. Also, guitars, skunk stripe, down south. It's crack, air, and crack, and send down south. Where people the shipwreckers prove that.
Gotcha. Now, I have another. So anyway, I just want to talk a few little things about this guitar. One thing that it does not have is some of these guitars didn't have truss rods, but this one does have a. If you can go back to the other camera there. So this one does have a truss rod cover. You see there, and has a truss rod in it. But some of these guitars didn't feature that, and they do have a very robust neck. I mean, the neck is very thick. I mean, very noticeably so. And it did carry some other features. For example, on the headstock of these, you can see it's got what they call a tapered headstock. So it's thicker at the bottom and then tapers thinner as it gets to the top. And they stopped doing that in 1952, I think, something like that. Yeah. And so these guitars, now here's another interesting little thing. So most Gibson guitars, before and later after this time period, the neck would have been made from mahogany wood. Okay, it's very stable and so on. But this neck, you can see, is 3-piece, laterally glued. And by the looks of the wood on the outside, which, again, I don't pretend to be an arborist or whatever the ist is that knows all about wood, but it appears to be either maybe a birch or a maple of some sort. But it is a 3-piece neck with what looks like a walnut insert through the middle, which is a really neat aesthetic choice. And I assume, it's still straight. So, it's done a good job as far as the, whatever they chose, it did a great job. So, but some of them had it and some of them didn't. So, I guess consistency has never been Gibson's strong suit. They like to bounce around when it comes. Matter of fact, here's my statement. The only thing consistent about Gibson are their inconsistencies. So, they are definitely all over the place. But I have to assume that maybe this was a materials choice because, again, there was a lack of materials.
So,
poplar, okay.
Sometimes most of these just have part of 40. You have 4 materials. This build gets scraps. So sometimes 40 strings. You'll also see those top ones and neck locks. The refusal to use the metal rods is chosen as permit choice. So 1943, convulsion controlled all the Canadian state. Limit spring instruments than 10% paid in materials. So in the tuners, the string got your 10%. Did not put in that metal. So as a result, during the time period when that order was effective, instead of the trouble, was the E-shaped edge of it going all the way up the neck. At the same time, Martin is of course, the instruments have far 10 times metal. It's largely a work and instruments.
Well, I'll tell you what, this is the finest guitar made of scraps that I've ever enjoyed. But they do.
I love this because it not just an object, a repository or social history. Look at the work Gibson and some of my friends, all kind of crazy going on. They're just trying to get guitars on the floor. And hell is hard. You can look it up and some weird every single time Gibson tells a story. To me, this makes us special.
Oh, no, I completely agree. Because really, this is a guitar that you can tell, first of all, this one is in, as you can see, pretty loved condition. I like that term, you know. But it just means the guy had bad technique and didn't take care of his stuff well enough. But man, this thing, it must have been played in church because it's got the hell played out of it. Because this, no, it is just absolutely ragged. But I'll tell you what, it sounds amazing. Now, I owe this guitar's life to my friend Donnie Barbara, who is a phenomenal luthier. I found this guitar in, let's just say, junk condition. And then went ahead and, you know, had Donnie, who, man, he had the neck off of this thing. He had, I mean, it was a mess. But, you know, he completely refretted it, reset the neck. And what's neat about a Gibson guitar is that you can know exactly how the you know, the neck is going to set in one. You know how all that stuff's going to work, and so basically, it's you know, it's just one of those things where you have a quality product all around. And let me just that's the Chattanooga Choo Choo. In the background there. Again, sorry about that. But we're having all sorts of fun audio things tonight. So, and again, I want to apologize. We're getting all these comments from people watching, and we appreciate that. But again, sometimes the internet connection's not cooperating. So, because you guys can hear me okay, I assume, right? I'm not hearing any issues there, right? Now, the two guitars I brought with me. The one that I'm playing here is called a Southern Jumbo. So this was in that Banner era. This one was, I guess you'd say, the top of the line. Now the Southerner Jumbo is, you know, some people might call it just your normal dreadnought slope-shouldered model. Okay. So it has, you know, the full thickness. The back and sides are made from mahogany. The top is made from spruce. As we were mentioning before, the neck on this one is made, well, as John corrected me, is made from poplar, and with a walnut center stripe and rosewood fretboard. But I'll tell you what, the tone of this guitar is to live for. It just, I'm not even using a pick. And it really just rings out. It's just got an incredible tone. So the, let me do a screenshot here, and then, So this is the Southerner Jumbo is, of course, their kind of top of the line model. This one, now they also made, in that same run, they made a J45. Now the J45, you're all familiar with that model designation if you're Gibson fans, but that was a brand new model that was first released during this Banner era. So before that, they were called the J35, just so people know a little bit of the history. So the J35 was the original model of that kind of workhorse, slope-shouldered mahogany guitar, and the J45 came out after during World War II in this Banner era. So you had the J45 and you had the Southerner Jumbo. Then you had a couple other models that, and of course, that you'll see here just in a second, that I brought with me. So I'm going to set this one down, and I'm going to show you the other one that's, you know, well, that's in the pile. All right, hang on a sec. And that's what it sounds like when you bonk guitars together, if you guys ever wondered. So now this model here is smaller, okay? This one is called an LG2. Now the LG2 is a smaller bodied guitar, okay, than the Southerner Jumbo. It is made from the same materials, though. So the back and sides are made from Honduran mahogany. The top is made from Sitka spruce, okay, not Adirondack, as some people might like to think. And the neck on this one is made from the mahogany wood, whereas the model we had just talked about was using poplar, like a 3-piece poplar neck. Now, the construction details, the scale is slightly different. The body size is the biggest difference, though. So the width here and the depth of the guitar make it a lot easier to control, where some people might have thought that the LG, now I always heard this when I was collecting guitars, getting into it, that LG stood for little guitar, or it might have stood for ladies guitar. Now, if we can get John connected again, he did some research in his book, Kalamazoo Gals, which if you guys are just tuning in, is really what this is all about. He did some research and came to the conclusion that both of those are incorrect. That Gibson made a model called the HG before. It was a Hawaiian guitar. And all this was just a continuation of that model designation with the LG, meaning it wasn't the Hawaiian version. It was just the steel string version. So anyway, so no, it doesn't mean ladies guitar, little guitar. It's just a model designation from Gibson's, archive or whatever they came up with. So now this one here features one of my favorite features of old Gibson guitars, and that is what's called the fire stripe pickguard. Now you can see that neat pickguard. The fire stripe, Gibson made their own guards, and I actually saw old footage once of a guy making these. What they did was they basically had a cookie pan, and they laid in different types of you know what? I'm sure I'm going to get it wrong, but some sort of, we'll call it, I don't know what kind of material it is, but basically those resins and whatnot that you see people doing those, making tables and stuff. They had resins, and they would first have like a yellow resin, and then they would put black resin, and the way they got the fire stripe is they had a little stick, and they would just make a little pattern through it. And that pattern is how each one of these look different. It's not just a normal cookie cutter style look. So anyways, with the this particular model has the fire stripe. You notice that the other one didn't have that. So again, that's just kind of one of those inconsistencies that we were talking about earlier. Now the sound of an LG is still, you can hear it's a little brighter, it's a little more focused. So, yeah, we got you back again. So,
All right.
anyway, sorry about that. Again, we're just having all sorts of technical problems tonight.
I think just curious about whether I be guest put on default at 30 minutes automatically term and then have a conversation among whether to I be back. Is that right?
Yeah, basically, yeah. Anyways, John, we were actually just, I kind of switched gears a little bit, and I brought my next little guest on here, which was my LG2.
Right.
And I was talking about how in your book you pointed out, I was telling him that I always heard the tale that LG meant little guitar or ladies guitar, but in your book, Kalamazoo Gals, by the way, you talk about how really it is more than likely just that they changed the designation. It was a steel string version of the HG, which meant Hawaiian version, just to kind of keep that, the continuity of the line the same.
I think there's no evidence. Some little that targets many smaller guitars. This could have been, it was ever advertised as guitar. Big macho blues guitar was the feature to be placed in that. It was a ladies guitar. So if you had the designation, Owen's block, or all of the small
Gibson LG is made from Gibson scope guitar, string guitar 4. Gibson did was a classic body for silica in Fnac. I think it's guitar. My like me.
Yeah.
So the product of mystery and some controversy about me, but a company L meant all body G ring.
Yeah.
Think it's bad.
Well, and I tend to agree with you because, I mean, that all makes a lot more sense. And additionally, I could imagine from a marketing standpoint, if you call something a lady's guitar and you're in a, there's no reason for this, by the way, but guitar is more male dominated than it should be. Okay, I'll say that. But if you're Gibson, you want to sell your guitars to everyone. Why the heck would you call something a lady's guitar if you ever wanted to sell it? I mean, because man, I'm a big guy, and this thing feels great. So, and man, it's got such a beautiful sound. So this model though is different than the Southerner Jumbo that I had earlier. I was just going through some of the differences. This one, first of all, doesn't have the skunk stripe. This stripe here. This is what happens when you live long enough. You start falling apart, you know? And yeah, so this guitar actually kind of showcases what, you know, a vintage guitar hound like me ends up with. When this guitar was found, it had a tailpiece on it because they didn't know how to properly fix the bridge plate and the bridge. And so they'd put a tailpiece on it. I mean, you can see how the finish has faded. So this also tells a story that this sunburst would have been all the way to here. But as time, the sunbursts fade out and thin. So really, it's like when you see old catalog scans of these guitars, oftentimes the sunburst looks like it's way up in here because it was. And it was really just the UV lighting of just going out and using a guitar that faded them out to having just this thin perimeter on the outside. Or in some cases, you can't hardly see a sunburst at all because it's completely faded through. So,
it did change nature sunburst very early, sort of 1930, the tiny time sunburst area, and slow Gibson non-resident larger. You're right. The fade of the light.
oh yeah, it does absolute wonders to it. But now they made, so we were talking about the different banner models, and the Southerner Jumbo would have been, I guess, their kind of top of the line, you know.
Mostly $5.
Yep.
Most top of the time.
And then it kind of went down quite a bit. It jumped down to the J45, and then you had the LG3, which was a very scarce guitar. And I know you own one of those, and I think you had just recently posted that there was only 130 of those ever made.
I have hold on my book, recommend Ellie. If you already have another with you could just stock great copy, that sort of thing. Open to the page. And so I have the LG3 130 made, LG1 159 of them. That's all the G450, which is a non-version J4 144. The rest to give me J4 was 400, L2 is 400, almost 400, and the about 1100. So within the market demand said that the market fewer first stars, non-verse than some stars. Lots to be some hot engines that would Gibson was left trying to get the war. I think kind of fun. But one thing I really like that the fewer of these Jeep see the one that's very rare. They aren't as valuable because in the market diversity. So these favorites are never made. They're relatively affordable market.
Gotcha. Now, one of our viewers that we have here, our friend Dale Prince, actually brought in his mother's LG3 guitar. And Yeah, he's watching. Yeah, he's watching tonight, and so he is one of my banner buddies down here in East Tennessee. But see, Dale, you need to go and you need to buy a copy of this book right here, which is available on, I'm sure, Amazon. I think, yeah, you can get these.
Part of this story, and a photograph for LG3, get content. This show, I will send you in book. See your LG3 stuff. See, I don't know a book. I have 4.5. So there's only half I got in and a half. If you'll get a copy of your LG3, I will send you.
Oh, that's oh man, you hear that? So we will get you. Yeah, we'll definitely get you a picture of. Matter of fact, John, if you want to see it early, you can just scroll through my Facebook pictures because I think there's a picture of me and Dale with that guitar together somewhere in there. But
it's one of the rarest guitars made, and again, I think because it's expensive.
Well, it's a wonderful guitar too. So they made the 3, and then this is the LG2. Now the LG1, was there a banner version of the LG1?
There was the as a host guitar.
Okay.
Was Stu model, elaborated, things, so for beautiful varieties. See perfectly great guitar. It's the same as LG3 and LG2. It's a mahogany extraordinary guitar.
Oh yeah.
Only no handful. Only 9 those shipped. And they're beautiful. They have a finish that appear more after. From the other guitars.
Well, so long story short, they didn't really make many models. It was not like today, where you can get so lost in the woods with all of the different variations of guitars that Gibson makes. This was the golden era right here, where people knew that you had one of 4 or 5 models to choose from, and every one was just wonderful, and they're pretty scarce.
At least the best.
Oh, I know, it's insane. It's just insane. But the tone of these guitars is now. I mean, I know it's a little unfair because this guitar here is older than most of y'all's parents. You know, I mean, it's pretty. But they just mellow out so nicely, and they just have such a wonderful projection. But really, they're articulate. You can hear the trebles, great, and of course that wonderful, sweet, pronounced mid-range that Gibson guitars are known for. You can see why. Let's just say masters of American tunesmithing, from Woody Guthrie to Bob Dylan and everyone else, actively were searching for these guitars because it complemented what they did. Just a wonderful choice.
Interesting. They had more instruments and lead instruments. If you show up at the gas stand with it, and people go up to a fiddle. You don't have an
yeah.
Of course, the opening thing are the extraordinaries. I mean, it's a certifiable target that tons of extraordinary cards can get into and burst. Later, the margins that really heavy that you run a very chorus bluegrass tune. More out or for really interesting. I like to play bluegrass. I try once in a while. You hear me play bluegrass. Bluegrass. I love Alice referring it. The flower Judah. I says the objective. I in India 12 women to be ours during World War. And I found everyone. So I take up these cars, I had to connect and human beings through them. But said I just really hear you can start.
Oh yeah, I mean they're incredible. They are definitely incredible. But so basically, what you guys need to do is, I first of all want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I want to again apologize about technology kind of throwing a little bit of a sabo in the gears tonight, but hopefully you were able to pull something and so on. But the one thing I want to focus on is just how wonderful these guitars are, but also even more so how wonderful our guest John was in coming on. And you definitely need to go and check out and purchase his book, Kalamazoo Gals, because I'll tell you, if you are a guitar guy, okay, this is a must-have book in your collection. And it is an absolutely easy read. I mean, it is just intriguing. You're not going to want to put it down. And it really tells a story that's not been told in our marketplace. And it's not just about guitars. It's about the American story, okay? It's a piece of Americana that is not being talked about enough. And so this is a wonderful book, and you definitely need to go and check it out. But again, thank you guys so much for watching tonight. And John, again, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on here.
Oh, my goodness. I really explore these times. I do let them know that we think the convention no works. They got a prepared and fest South last year. I will soon have trailer looking at the count now. So there's a sort of a hidden Jersey from members. And it has just taken me so much I feel so grateful that I found this great. I found these women. Say this, you people birthday or last night on this guy, the had to do a celebration last year, January 3rd, for the last gal, 100 for cat, people, Jennifer Edel, Sawyers, and 100 plus inches around the world going to her she took 100 this town, and no matter about or meeting event, we're going to agree to prevent education today. During the there, they don't want to survive. Thank you for the being for the story. It's the word to me.
Oh, absolutely. So definitely, guys, go check out that book. And if you get the opportunity to ever play one of these, just know that they're out there. This one was found in a barn in Ray County, Tennessee, in pieces. And my friend Steve Cahey, who's a wonderful person that we lost last year, is the one who restored this. But it was, or brought it back to life, I mean, these are just wonderful guitars. They're worth the effort. So, John, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And thank you guys so much. And definitely, and again, apologize about the audio, but again, thank you so much for watching. And we'll see you here in a fortnight with another cool vintage guitar voyage. So, appreciate you guys.